Let's talk about how the mainstream media failed to see the Trump upset coming at all. Fox News media analyst and host of Fox's MediaBuzz, Howard Kurtz, is here tonight. Joe Concha, media reporter and columnist for The Hill, is in New York. Okay, guys, just a flavor here. Politico, we were all wrong. That seems obvious, right? But we were more than wrong. We were laughably oblivious. New York Times, the news media by and large missed what was happening all around it, and it was the story of a lifetime. Washington Post, to put it bluntly, the media missed the story. In the end, Americans wanted something different. Howie, we saw this. A lot of us saw it. You were one of the ones who saw the media turning and covering it differently from the beginning.
Been saying this for a year and a half. I guess the New York Times 84% chance of Hillary winning was a little bit off, but this is a failure, Brett, of historic proportions. It's not just failing to know that Donald Trump could win Wisconsin or being off on the polls and the punditry, bad as that was, given the intensive coverage here. It was a failure to understand what was going on in the country, that the millions of Americans who have now made Donald Trump the president-elect were angry and frustrated at a broken system. They wanted to blow it up here in Washington. And although there was chatter about that, I think that too many journalists living in a bubble, particularly in the New York-Washington corridor, just didn't find it imaginable that this guy could win.
Joe, what was striking to me was that, some of the organizations like the Huffington Post yesterday on election night had to change its editorial stance to say, you know what, no, he's not entertainment. We are going to cover him now as potentially the President of the United States.
Yeah, they had an editor's note after every Trump story, Brett, saying that Donald Trump is a xenophobic, racist. It was an editor's note, actually, and they ran this for a year and a half, and now finally they've accepted the fact that Donald Trump is going to be around for a long time as the leader of the free world. But I think there's one undeniable fact here, Brett, that I saw that came out of this election, and that is traditional media, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, Politico, now have a fraction of the influence that they once had. Look at the overwhelmingly negative press coverage that Trump got throughout this campaign. 9 out of 10 stories deemed negative towards Trump, according to an MRC study. A USA Today poll asked, who are you rooting for? Who do you think the media is rooting for? Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump? And by a 10-to-1 ratio, Brett, they answered Hillary, including a majority of Clinton supporters who felt that the media was rigged against Trump. So what does all this tell you? That despite all these overwhelming headwinds against Trump, that Republicans and a good chunk of Democrats simply did not trust the messenger, because at last check, it looks like Donald Trump is going to get more electoral votes than any Republican candidate in nearly 30 years, despite all of that negative press.
Yeah, now let's be fair here. He did give the media a lot to cover and a lot of fodder to chew over, but they just never saw the anger in the country about Washington or the elite or the establishment, Howie.
A lot of the investigative reporting about Trump was not only necessary, but something that was needed because he had no record in public life. He was a builder and a casino guy and a reality show guy and all of that. But the imbalance in the sheer volume versus Hillary Clinton got to be embarrassing, even as some journalists and media critics defended. I would go a step further than Joe Concha. I would say that the coordinated is not the right word. I would say that the assault on Donald Trump and tone of negativity, sometimes bordering on hostility, that we saw since the conventions actually helped Trump, because he ran against the media, called people out by name, sometimes went too far in some of his language, I think, about journalists. But for the people who are angry at the political establishment, they often see the media as part of that establishment. So if the media seem to be against Donald Trump, well, then he is fighting for them against us.
Well, Joe, the WikiLeaks about the leaked debate questions, all of that coming, it almost shored up that argument that the media is in on it too.
Exactly. When a Republican in the past, Brett, has complained about media coverage, it was just seen as, you're whining, it's just hot air. But when we saw examples in print of quote approval being engaged by reporters with the Clinton campaign, sharing stories in advance with the Clinton campaign, debate questions being given in advance to the Clinton campaign, suddenly Trump's argument had foundation. So when he talked about a rigged system, he wasn't just talking about government. At every campaign stop, he mentioned the media, but this time that argument had teeth, and when the heart of the press went against him, the boomerang effect happened, and that just shored up his support that much more.
Now, I just have 10 seconds each. Donald Trump did not treat the media well. He pointed out in events...
Dishonest and corrupt were his choice words.
He called them horrible. He called them... So what does a President Trump do with the White House press corps? How do you think a media is handled by the Trump administration?
I see a combative relationship on both sides. Trump is going to stick with the tactics. Maybe he'll soften a bit since he's now the leader of the free world, but he's going to stick with the tactics that won him this election, and the press is going to fight back because the press, I think, has been embarrassed by the mistakes and misjudgments of this campaign.
Joe?
The only thing I could think of was when Howard Cosell interviewed Muhammad Ali and said, you're being truculent with the media. And Ali said, well, I don't know what truculent means, but if it's good, then I'm it. Truculent. That is the only word that you're going to see over the next 4 years in terms of that relationship, Brett.
Joe, Howie, thank you very much.